Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the film Cloak and Dagger. Just gotta grab it quick. Cloak and Dagger is right there. It's in a bundle of 10 other movies. Those who saw my matinee review, this is the same bundle pack. So Cloak and Dagger is right there. In this film, you guys, it's about a little boy who's played by Henry Thomas. Those of you might know him from E.T. He played Elliot in that movie. He's a skilled video gamer. This is during the Atari 2600 era in the movie, and he's really skilled at it. He's always at this video game store, and he has this friend who's also really good at video games and sells video games. And so one day he gets caught in the mix of a Atari 2600 game that has a microchip in it, and a organization that's run by a group of evil spies wants to get a hold of this microchip, and this Henry Thomas character one has the cartridge that they need to have that has this microchip in it, and so he's caught in this mix that where none of his dad doesn't believe him and the police don't believe him that he has this chip, and that if it gets to the wrong hands it could be dangerous. And there's also a walkie-talkie device that he has, and a friend of his has, who's played by a little girl. And there's this walkie-talkie that has this bomb device that will go off at midnight if the criminals don't get what they want. So not only do they have to worry about the microchip, they now have to worry about the walkie-talkie. And Henry Thomas's character is now stuck in the middle of all this, but luckily he has an imaginary friend who is a super spy of a video game that he really likes, and so he's helping him throughout the movie get out of these really dangerous situations that we would normally see a character like James Bond or Jason Bourne run into in a movie like this. So overall, guys, I really like Cloak and Dagger a lot. I think it's a hidden gem of the 1980s. I think it's a film that really not a lot of people are talking about enough. It came out 2 years after E.T., and it came out in a year where we had a lot of other really good movies that came out in 1984. So already we had The Karate Kid, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Starman, Gremlins. We had tons of films in 1984, so I can see why it kind of got lost in the mix because those films are still relevant today as they were back then. But Cloak and Dagger, I think if it weren't for all the Atari 2600 strong connections, if it wasn't stuck in that era, I think Cloak and Dagger could have stood the test of time better. I don't know if it just came out at a time where other big movies were coming out. I really don't quite know why this film was not so big. But you think with Henry Thomas involved, who people would recognize from E.T., why this film wasn't bigger than it ended up being. But anyway, back to the review of Cloak and Dagger. For my positives and negatives, Henry Thomas and the little girl who plays the or the little actress who plays the little girl in the movie, that makes more sense. Both of them are phenomenal. They definitely feel like adult characters just because they treat their personality of these roles so well. You really believe that they're these kids that know all these things about spies and can get out of these dangerous situations, and just really believable characters. They're well written. We really care about them. We don't want them to get in trouble like the movie's about to make them, uh, but we really like these characters. This is also an edge of your seat adventure. I remember watching this the entire way through. Um, I was just at the edge of my seat the whole time. It was exciting. It was thrilling. You're trying to figure out what's going to happen next. You're trying to figure out how these two kids, specifically Henry Thomas, is going to get away with this microchip. How his imaginary friend is going to help him get out of these really dangerous situations. Um, just a really good edge of your seat adventure in this movie. The film also has a lot to say about heroes for children and growing to become independent people. So the film really makes that point, especially with the imaginary friend that, um, every kid, had that hero they looked to, whether it was Batman or Superman or their parents. And I think the film really reinforces that kids have this. And then the film also makes the point that, it's great to have those, but it's also great to grow as an independent person. And it's great to learn from them, but it also helps you go to the next phase of your life where you're more independent and you're kind of become your own hero. I also like the great espionage and spy elements that the film had. It really does feel like a James Bond film at some points. It even feels like an Alfred Hitchcock spy film at some points, too. So just really good, well handled espionage and spy elements. I don't credit me on this. I think the director's name is Richard Franklin or something like that. And I think Tom Holland, who wrote the screenplay for this movie, might have also worked on Child's Play and Fright Night. Once again, don't count me on that. I also like the nostalgic Atari vibe that this movie had. It definitely felt like something where, the Atari was very big. It's kind of funny how at one point Henry Thomas mentions that the games are cheap. That's definitely not relevant now, or even relevant when NES became popular. But it was kind of funny because, this movie probably came out shortly after the video game crash happened, before Super Mario Brothers brought back video games, and the NES did too. So it's kind of funny how that video game crash element was kind of incorporated into this. I thought that was kind of clever. So I like that nostalgic Atari vibe that this film brought. For negatives of Cloak and Dagger, it is a little outdated. It's not very modern. Some of the spy elements, some of the, like I said, the Atari 2600 thing, the fact that you have to beat the entire game just to figure out what the microchip was about was kind of dumb. So overall, it's not a very up to date movie. Sorry about the clock back there. I'm really sorry. Um, yeah, it doesn't feel very modern. It's a very outdated movie, but it's still very good. I also thought the film became too over the top for its own good. The film gets to the point where Henry Thomas has to drive a car all by himself, and he has to shoot a gun, and all these really crazy things that we would never want to see a young kid like his age do in a movie or do in real life either. But the film does get very over the top after a while, so it is a little over the top for its own good, especially towards the third act. But overall, I'm going to give Cloak and Dagger an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's a very good, underrated, not very well known 1980s film gem that I think more people should see. And I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's a really good movie. So if you have not seen Cloak and Dagger, I would recommend it. It's right here on this box set. It's actually, from what I've seen of this movie so far, it's actually better than some of the movies you see right here. So that kind of tells you something. So 8.5 out of 10 for me. If you haven't seen Cloak and Dagger, please do. Not a lot of people know about it, and they should because I think it's a very good movie. 8.5 out of 10 for me.